Well, welcome tonight to our webinar. My name is Andrew Sagan. I'm the Executive Director of Phi Alpha Delta and a member of the Robert E. Reddy Alumni Chapter here in Washington, D.C. Tonight's webinar is a part of the Phi Alpha Delta webinar series. If you haven't seen our other webinars, you can visit them at our P.A.D YouTube channels for the recordings. Tonight's topic is marketing and branding yourself in today's online world. In the next few months, we will be presenting other webinars, such as one on intellectual property, one on technology in the law, and in April, we plan on doing one on cannabis law. So stay tuned for those details. If you have questions during the presentation, please use the chat feature, and we'll get to those after the presentation. But for now, I am proud to introduce to you our presenter, Michelle Isherwood. Michelle sits on our International Executive Board and spearheads our Marketing Initiatives Committee. She has over 20 years of experience in marketing, business process development, audit, and compliance, and she has also worked in the private and public sectors to create effective business strategies and compliant processes. And Michelle, thank you in advance for tonight's timely topic, and without further ado, I turn you over to Michelle. Michelle.
Thank you, Andrew. Hi, everybody. I'd like to start out by thanking Andrew and the Executive Office staff for all their support with this webinar series. It's been successful so far, and we're looking forward to a continued success. Also, thank you to the International Executive Board and the district justices and other members who have helped us with Initiative 1 and with the webinar series. So let's get started. Like Andrew said, I have a background in marketing and process development. Currently, I'm the Vice President of Compliance and Privacy for a startup healthcare company in San Francisco. I am also a member of Humphrey Chapter and the San Francisco Alumni Chapter. So I hope everyone's having a good evening, but let's get started. So marketing. There are key steps to marketing, and when I talk about marketing, most people think commercials or a product or a brand. When I talk about a product or a brand for us, the key is you can think of your chapter, Phi Alpha Delta, and yourself. So anything that you want to quote unquote sell or promote can be a brand and can be marketed. When it comes to yourself, when you're looking into things like, what do I want to get this certain job. I want to present, myself in this way. I want to gain business for my firm and my company. A lot of times that comes into how you present yourself, your company, and those sorts of things. When it comes to Phi Alpha Delta, when you're looking at your chapter and when you're looking at the organization as a whole, how do you present the organization so that people will want to join? And then if you have your own business or if you're your own firm, how do you present your firm or your business such that people will want to do business with you, buy your products, buy your services, that sort of thing? So there are three key steps. The first one is do your research, then build your plan and measure your results. So let's go to do your research. First is know your product. So you have to know your product, you kind of have to do your research. And to do that, you look at what are your key features and attributes, and how does your product offering differ from someone else's or other people. So in that instance, if you want to take Phi Alpha Delta, for instance, last fall, we did, a year and a half ago, we did focus groups. And the one thing that we wanted to get out of that was learning what our product is about. What are our key features? What do people think our key features are, and that sort of thing. If I was going to pitch Phi Alpha Delta to someone, I would go to the Phi Alpha Delta website, learn everything I can about it. If I want to get a new job, if I want to sell my business, I'm going to figure out what are my key features and attributes, and then what makes my offering different from other people. Coke and Pepsi, I know maybe I'll start an argument, are basically the same thing. They're both colas. But what makes them different? When Coke sells theirs versus when Pepsi sells theirs, what are they offering? How do they differentiate themselves in the market? And these are things you have to sit down and think about. List what are the key features? What do I bring to the market? If I'm looking for a new job, I bring to the market. What are my strengths? What attributes do I have? Am I really good at strategic thinking? Am I really good at planning? Am I a great communicator? Can I woo people and get them to understand what we're trying to do? Or maybe I'm technology side and I can explain technology really well to other people. So those are the types of things that, those are your attributes. And then if you stack that up against what offer and what makes your product different, what makes Biofidel different. The second thing is do your research is know your market. What's out there? What other organizations, what other companies, what other potential job competitors are in the market, and how many of those are out there. When it comes to Phi Alpha Delta, if you're looking in your local neighborhood or your local community and think, if we want someone to join our chapter in Phi Alpha Delta, what are the other competitors out there? There's the Bar Association, there's other legal organizations, and then how many current potential customers are there? And when I say customers for Phi Alpha Delta, I mean how many other people in the legal market would be interested in joining our organization. Are there, is my legal market big? Is my legal market small? If I'm thinking law school, how many law students do we have in our law school? If I'm thinking how many potential and current customers and I'm looking for a job, how many companies need someone who do what I do? And really sit down and list who they are and what they are, and then figure out who would be competing with you in those markets. Number 3 is know your customer. What do they need? What do they want? What need does your product or your services fill? And then how do they want to be communicated with? There's nothing worse than having a great business plan and not being able to get it to the people you want to get it to. We had a meeting this week here at work, and I needed to get some information from one of our team members, but I didn't know how they wanted to be communicated with. I know that sounds goofy, but there's so many ways to communicate now with Slack, other instant messages services, texting, email. There's the good old-fashioned phone call. There's real mail, snail mail, as we call it now. So how does your particular client and customer base want to be communicated with? And it may vary. Some of your customers may want to get something in the mail. Others may want to communicate via phone. Others would never pick up the phone if you called, but a text message or a Slack or some other or email would be the way to communicate with them. So these are part of the research. You really need to sit down and think. Here's my, what do my customers need? Here's my product. What need does that fulfill? And then think, how do I communicate that to my potential customers? And then 4th, know your goals and objectives. What do you hope to accomplish with your marketing? And do you want to increase your membership or current member engagement, brand awareness, or marketing presence? Do you want to find a new job or advance in your current job or change careers? And then, or do you want to bring in new and different clients? Those objectives, and you can do several of these at the same time, but you have to know what you hope to accomplish in order to put your plan together. So these are all kind of the early part of marketing. And if you sit down and you've done all the other 3 steps and this 4th step, going into the next part, Sorry, my computer's stuck. There it goes. This next part, to building your plan. So once you've got all your data and you've put together and you've answered all those questions, go ahead, sit down and take a minute to review it. For those of you who've already taken the bar exam, it's much like that. You read through all the information, but then you take a minute to outline and read and put your data in order. At that point, set your objectives, figure out what you want to do, how you want to reach people, create a message and a look that communicates your brand. Messages, if you look at something like a Coca-Cola or Phi Delta or something like that, you'll notice that we have a look. Everything is purple and gold. We have a way of talking that suits what we want to be. So that can, when we look at that for individuals and for companies, that includes how do you want to look on social media? What do you want your message to be in the various channels? So then you create your communication strategy. How do you want to communicate that out? Is it just going to be social media? Are you going to have a Facebook page, Instagram? How do you want to get that message to people? Is it going to be in ads? Is there a local paper or a local advertising group that you want to be part of? Is Above the Law something that you want to advertise in your local bar journal? How are you going to get your message out? Again, social media is always an option. There's traditional print. There's a little bit of everything. So working to figure out how you want to get that message to people. And then establish a schedule. Where do you want to be with your marketing? When do you want to go out? What's the best time? In previous job, we communicated a lot, our messages out to our potential clients via email. Well, email, there's a lot of research out there on who reads their email and when. But if you look, the best days to send emails tend to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. People tend to read them a little more. Emails on Fridays almost never get read. And if they do, they sometimes get lost in the shuffle on a Monday morning when people are scrambling to kind of catch up after the weekend. So really, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday tend to be better days to send your email. I don't know why, but that's just how it works. And even with Facebook posts and Facebook ads, you really have to think about when the potential clients you have would be sitting down to look at the channels that you want to portray. And then execute your plan. I'm going to go back to this for a minute too. The one thing, no, I'm going to go forward. So anyway, sorry, it's been a day. So this part's really important, and a lot of people tend to skip it. When you're measuring, when you start to think about your marketing plan, and you put all this time and effort into doing the research, creating your look and feel, and then you launch your plan. There's usually a cost associated with it. There's time. There's effort. If you don't measure the results and know, once you have clear objectives, if you don't start establishing the metrics you want to measure again, do you want to gain 10 new clients in the next 6 months? Do you want to have a new job by, in 3 months? You want to get 15 new members in the next month. These sorts of things. So you establish those metrics and you launch your campaign. And then every so often you start to look and you say, okay, well, I'm a month and a half into my plan, and I have not received one invitation for an interview. We've only gotten 5 new members, and what we really wanted was 50. So at that point, you just sit down and adjust your plan and say, okay, well, this didn't work, but what didn't work? Maybe it's your communication method. Maybe it's the look and feel that you've put together. Again, sometimes something as simple as a color turns people off. I know that, again, it sounds goofy, but that's just part of the way marketing works. There are certain colors that make people happy or portray a certain image that you want, or maybe it's something that's been written on social media, maybe that's a turnoff. It's something that you have to sit down and really reflect on and say, what isn't working here? And sometimes it's simply picking up the phone and calling someone and saying, when you see this, what does this make you think? So that people start to understand kind of what you have to do. And then adjust your plan and figure out maybe your goals aren't realistic, maybe your objectives aren't realistic, or maybe you just need to figure out a different way to get to those objectives. So it's like a constant process. You're always going back to the beginning. And maybe you have to do some additional research, ask additional people, look up the numbers, and just see where you're at. So that's kind of marketing in a nutshell. And then I kind of wanted to touch on image and social media and all the stuff that I think clutters our world sometimes, but it does represent who you are. Clear messaging is always important when it comes to marketing yourself and your brand. And that's why, creating that, when you're looking at the research, what are my, I'm going to go back up here, the research part, what is your market? What do you stand for? What are your key attributes? And any message you have to make sure that you develop is always featuring those key attributes in a positive way. Social media sometimes distracts from that. It could be something as easy as you posted something and that on your professional site, and that really turns people off. It really depends. And when you start to think about what am I posting, is my Facebook site, my personal Facebook site, public facing? If it is, and I Google you, I don't know, it says, is requesting to annotate the shared content. I don't know what that means, but sorry. If you post something on your Facebook site and your private or your personal page is public, people can see it. And maybe it's not the brand that you would like to portray to everyone in a business sense. Then you really need to think about, is this really something I want to be putting out there? Maybe you need to mark your page private. These are things you have to think about. Social media and also cleaning up your social media. The one thing that's been really surprising to me is people going back and digging through old social media from, when you were, if you're much younger than I am, so in your teens and 20s when Facebook and the like started coming out, things you wrote when you're in your teens and 20s, you probably don't feel now, you wouldn't write them now because you're an adult, that people are finding those now and they're bringing them up. And it's always surprising to me, candidates for office, actors, sports figures, they wrote dumb stuff when they were young, but that stuff sits out in the Twitterverse and old posts on Facebook, and it's brought up later. I think there was recently a gentleman that was raising money for, I can't even remember the cause, but he had written something stupid, 6, 7, 8 years before, and it started to tarnish his reputation, even though now he wasn't that same person and he was doing good things. A newspaper brought it up. So these are the types of things I would suggest curating your social media or marking things private so that, if you're trying to create a certain image, you're trying to get a certain job, you're trying to sell a certain product, it's better to make sure that nothing can come up that would tarnish the image that you're now trying to create. And again, research is key. If you don't do these 4 steps, knowing your product, knowing your market, finding out where your customers are, finding out how they want to be communicated with, it'll be really difficult to be successful in getting your message to the people that you want to get out. That's really kind of it in a nutshell. Are there questions, feedback, any kind of concerns, thoughts? You can put them on the chat, and Andrew can see them. Actually, now I can see them too. So, questions?
Michelle, do you have some tips that for social media for chapters specifically on how they could reach out and better use social media for advertising their chapter?
I do. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, I think that, you know, when you look at chapters, and I'm speaking about alumni chapters, law school chapters, pre-law chapters, and to be honest, the pre-law chapters do this pretty well. You know, photos are key. Photos speak, photos do speak to people. And so when you're putting pictures of your happy members doing great, fun events, you know, whether it's volunteering, whether it's, I'll put this out there, blanket making for Project Linus Day this week, or your Spirit Week event, your recruitment event. You should always think of, you know, how would we portray ourselves in pictures? People like pictures. If you're, I know there's still tabling. If you're tabling for an event, you know, put pictures up, whether it's a rotating screen on your, you know, laptop or tablet, or something as simple as a board with photos on it. That to me says a lot, and it creates great imagery. It makes your table pretty. It makes your Facebook page pretty. What I would suggest doing, however, is using your Facebook to get like event messages out, invite people to things so they can learn what you're about. What I would avoid, and I see this on some of the chapters. I'm a member of most of the district groups and a lot of the chapter groups. What I would avoid doing is having large debates about things on your chapter Facebook page. We've done that we've tried to do that with the Phi Delta main group. You know, those a lot of times they're better as a conversation. They're better in a meeting. They can even be on an email. But on your Facebook group, you should think of that as putting your best face forward. That's where people are going to come so that they want to join your group. And if they see a lot of conversation back and forth, they may not want to. They may not want to be part of the drama. But if you're, you know, these are our events, this is what we stand for, you know, that speaks a lot on your Facebook page. Let's see. Oh, here's one. I'll go ahead and read it. When searching for a job, do you have recommendations on resume writing or how to put forward in a long list of candidates? I think there's a lot of theories on resume writing, and it's changed so much over the years. But, you know, really, resumes should be kind of result-oriented. So, you know, it's not just I did these things. It's I did these things, and it accomplished X. You know, I put in place a strategic I put in place compliance processes, and it prevented, you know, it prevented lawsuits, or it ensured that we complied with these regulations, things like that. Also, it should be short. Nobody wants to read in fact, I was laughing. A friend posted on Facebook the other day because he's interviewing, and he was like, nobody needs a 10-page resume unless you've got 100 years of experience published for the last 40 years. You know, things you really need to know your audience and customize it. It should just be the high point. Also, look at the keywords. Figure out the keywords in the industry that if there are certain buzzwords that your industry is using, or regulatory schemes and regulations, kind of customize your resume almost every time you send it to that particular industry. And it does. And if you look in the job description, it normally has buzzwords they're looking for. They're all screened usually first by a computer, and they're looking for certain keywords. Also, if you're in organizations, Phi Alpha Delta, Junior League, any of those, I would get those on your resume. If you've held officer positions, I would put those on there too. People like to see, especially nowadays, your volunteer experience. That kind of sets you apart and really highlights. If I see Phi Alpha Delta on a resume when I'm looking for things, I'm normally going to at least try to talk to that person or find out how active they were in their chapter and get them in there. I've had people ask me about Junior League on all my resumes too. So it's always fascinating to see what other organizations people are part of, and you want to have that kinship with someone if you can. That kind of sets you apart. I hope that helps. Do we need to have a media release for chapter photos on social media, or is refraining from tagging sufficient? That's funny, we just had this conversation here in the office. We haven't in the past had chapter photo, like releases for chapter photos, but I think it's always good to ask people, are you okay that we put, we use your photo on social media? And some people are very sensitive about that. Sometimes it's just as simple as an email, and make sure people are okay, especially if they're, if they're members. If you're at a certain event and somebody's holding a glass of wine or a beer or something, they might not want to be photographed holding alcohol, and that's you should totally respect that. But ask people. It doesn't hurt, and sometimes it doesn't need to be as formal as a these signs here. It's just an email. Do you mind if we, we're going to post these pictures, and just make sure that people are on board with it. Nothing makes people more angry than finding themselves on an unflattering picture on Facebook. I will tell you that I used to have a top secret security clearance with the Department of Justice, and if that's something that you plan on doing or pursuing a job with the federal government or something where you're going to need a high-level clearance, be careful. Photos are what you allow people to tag you in. Excessive photos with wine, alcohol of any kind will raise questions. Don't get me wrong, any of you who know me know that probably 80% of my photos have I have a glass of wine in my hand. But again, I'm older and I'm kind of done with the security clearance thing. But know that it does raise questions. And again, some people don't want to be tagged with alcohol in their hand or whatever. Just make sure it's just easier to ask and then be sorry later. Any other questions, concerns? Again, I think
we do have one more.
Oh, go ahead.
We do have one more question, Michelle. I see that from Aubrey, that how would you recommend curating your social media account?
I think the delete key is a really handy function on your Facebook. And I know people are like, Facebook is so fake. You're right, it is. For the most part, I would keep things light on there. And we even talked about this from a hacking perspective in a training I was doing yesterday. You probably don't want to overshare on Facebook. You really don't. People can see things. They can use it to hack into your, to social engineer and hack into your account, but also just keep things on a high level. Again, oversharing is, what is that phrase, TMI? I would keep it off. I mean, again, anything that's public facing, it's just better not to have it there if you don't have to. And I get it. It's a good way to interact with people, but sometimes things get posted on Facebook. I just go back and delete them. Or if there are photos of me that I find particularly unflattering, I just ask people to remove my tag. Or now on Facebook, you can do it yourself. So I'll just try to curate as much as I can and make sure that it's all very positive. I know my Facebook account looks like I'm always happy and I'm always wonderful, and my husband buys me flowers more often than he does. I just recycle those photos. Kidding. But, nobody necessarily wants to know that I'm unhappy. And I share that with my personal friends, and I try to keep that off of Facebook just because for me, I don't need it to come back and bite me at some point. I have a rule, my mom laughs, on like video. When video started coming out, people started saying, I never want to have anything on video or post it publicly that I wouldn't want my grandmother to see. That's my rule. It's my rule. It doesn't have to be yours, but I try to live by that, especially if it's photos, any of that. Would I be embarrassed if my grandmother saw that? And my grandma was a really fun person, but, even she had her limits. So that's my kind of take on that. You also have to remember, especially when you're posting on public sites like the Phi Alpha Delta group, those are people in your industry. So they're, the one thing you have and that only you can control is your integrity and your image. And it takes a lot to build that up. It takes a lot to build that respect and that trust. It takes very little to have it destroyed. And then it takes even longer to gain that forgiveness again. Again, you will see time after time someone has kind of redeemed themselves, but every now and then that article comes in saying, oh, remember when they were like this? It comes back. So on public groups, I would keep a bit above them. Think about it. Would I want this photo or this image or my comment, if seen by a potential employer, a potential client, would I be embarrassed on a public group like our Phi Alpha Delta group or any others? Again, if you lock down your site, things tend to have a way of coming back. And if someone screenshots something and brings it into, a lawsuit or something later, Snapchat was supposed to be the save-all because it deletes after so long. And then we found out that people were taking screenshots of it and sharing that with people. So again, think before you post. That's kind of how I do it. Would my grandmother be embarrassed if she saw it? That's my thought. People have other takes. Other thoughts, questions? I know we talked a lot about law school chapters and pre-law chapters and how you market yourself, but I think we don't talk enough about alumni. How do we get alumni members? If you have friends, friends and families who are attorneys who for some reason didn't join in law school. It's sad, I know. I have a few of those people. I don't know how they escaped, but they did. But there's nothing to say that you can't get those people to join now. With the Project 500 that Brother Whitecap has been working on, one of the things we've been saying is ask a friend, ask a colleague who's an attorney who didn't join in law school, hey, you want to join Phi Alpha Delta? And then tell them about Phi Alpha Delta. One of the best things to do, and this you can use in your real life to market yourself, to market your business, to market Phi Alpha Delta, is develop that 20-second elevator speech. Use that research that you've done, and then figure out in 20 seconds what you can tell somebody about yourself, about your company, about your about Phi Alpha Delta in 20 seconds. The time it basically takes to ride an elevator. About you, why you, your product, Phi Alpha Delta would be the best organization to join, or hire, or whatever. Those speeches, they take some practice, but they're great. I come up with them all the time. Other organizations I've been in, they write some down and give them to people. We've worked on that a little bit with Phi Alpha Delta, and we will be working more on it. To say, here's 20 seconds of what's Phi Alpha Delta. There's nothing worse. I used to table a lot with different law school chapters, and I still do. But now I'm up in Reno, so I don't have as much access to law school chapters. When I would table and people would come up and they'd say, what is Phi Alpha Delta? And people would stare at them and go, what's a club? It's not a club, people. It's more than that. So figure out a way to explain, yourself, Phi Alpha Delta. Ways to do this is, why did you join? Or if I'm trying to tell people about myself, I'm a compliance and strategy professional. I have over 20 years of experience. You know, can you stand out and give someone a summary enough to say, hey, I'd like to talk to you more about whatever opportunity we have. Or tell me more about Phi Alpha Delta after your 20-second spiel. You know, it's the hook. Get them in there. Yes, John Karasik joined as an alumni, which is a good thing because we would miss him if he didn't. So, you know, ask people. The most common thing we hear when someone says, why did you join Phi Alpha Delta? They'll say, because someone asked me. If you don't ask, no one will join. Any other questions, concerns, thoughts? I'm open to discussion. Some of my favorite things are discussion. Again, if you have questions or, you know, if you use the resources that we have here to you know, for job advice, for, you know, to network with people. That's the big thing. Get out there. The easiest thing to do is to tell people what you want and how you want to do it. But it should be organized and figure out what makes you different, what would make you stand out. And only you know you, if when it comes to career and when it comes to your life. Well, you can, I mean, you can ask others, what do you think about me? What would I, you know, what do you see as my skills? But that's the big thing is market yourself, market the organization, market your company so that someone would want to come to you over someone else.
All right. Well, thank you, Michelle. We really appreciate your time tonight. I just want to reiterate that we have many, many resources here at the Executive Office. Don't forget that if you ever need network referral, ideas for your chapter, ideas for jobs, or when you get to the place where you're going from pre-law to law, law to alumni, that we're here for you, and we will pull you through the process, and we can serve as a great resource for your career in the future. So never forget about us. So we really appreciate everyone's time, and thank you again, Michelle, for everything you've done. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew, and everyone for joining us. Feel free to reach out, and good luck. Have a good Spirit Week, everybody. Go Phi Alpha Delta.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.